Lance Hall here for Let's Discuss with Lance Hall. Happy to welcome Don McLean to the program tonight. How you doing today, Don?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
I want to thank you very much for taking the time for me today. It's not very often that a guy from Vermont up here gets to talk to somebody who's written one of the top five songs of the 20th century. So thank you very much.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on your show, and we're going to have a nice talk.
Yeah. So we're at the 50th anniversary of American Pie. You've got a re-recording of it coming, a collaboration coming out. The single came out last week. The video comes out tomorrow on the 62nd anniversary, of course, of the day the music died, as is said. Buddy Holly, and
That is a long time, isn't it? Wow.
it is. Um, I don't even know where to start. Here's where I'm going to start. It was about four. The album and song went to number one actually early in '72, correct?
The song went to number one in 71 and 72,
Okay.
I think.
And but at one point, both the album and the single were at number one at the same time on the charts.
Yes, I think so.
First question, do you remember where you were when you found that out?
No, I don't remember much about that time. It was um, when I put the first album out, Tapestry,
Hmm.
I was already so busy. I would do sometimes three station visits a day and then sing at night. So I was all worn out by the time I recorded and released American Pie, and it went to number one. And then the load of visits to radio stations and interviews and everything, and then television and all, it became so heavy that I don't remember a lot. I think I just kind of washed it out of my mind. I didn't, all I knew is that it was causing a kind of hysteria.
Mm.
I'd have women pass out, and audiences are screaming and this and that, and the audiences were very big too, and they were mostly women.
Mm.
So somebody's got to do this, so I had to
Sure.
do it,
Yeah.
and but it was all new to me. I didn't really know what the hell was going on. I didn't. I was just interested in my ideas. My song ideas. I was a little bit like a Mr. Peepers. I really wasn't worldly
Mm.
much. I was more interested in ideas and making records, and it was so exciting making albums and being in the studio. I just loved it, and so you got to do that if you really want to make good records. You got to be. It's almost like you have to know what it's like to hear a record where you want to climb in the speaker.
Sure. Yeah. That sort of answers my second question. What you talked about there was, did you have time to enjoy it? Having a number one song and
No,
album at the same time.
no. I the '70s were a horrible decade for me.
Mm.
I had a nervous breakdown around 1974
Mm.
and made the album Homeless Brother with Joel Dorn, and
Mm.
then pulled out of that and then kept going ever since,
Yeah.
nonstop. Uh, but I even worked a lot when I had that happen. I just, sucked it up and did what I had to do.
Right.
But, that was an experience, not being able to function
Yeah.
terribly well. And so what I realized was that, that I had to dial it back a little bit.
Mm.
I couldn't do this anymore at
Right.
that rate. People were running me ragged, and I couldn't really. I was a sensitive mechanism, and I couldn't
Hmm.
really do that. So I learned to pace myself, and that served me very well.
Yeah. It's pretty well documented in doing my research that the first verse and everything came to you almost like stream of conscious. You sat down and all of a sudden this, a long time ago popped in your head. At that time, were you like one of those guys who would sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write at such and such a time, or did you just go with the
No,
flow?
no, I'm not that kind of guy at all. I don't really care about it all that much. If I have something I want to say, it comes out.
Yeah.
but I don't sit around and think, I'm obliged to do this because I'm Don McLean, the songwriter. I don't do that at all.
Right.
I have a million interests, and I like to do, what's fun for me, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And then if I have an idea that I'm really, think is going to be a great song or whatever, I'll start. It'll stay in my head a lot, and then I'll get around to doing something about it.
Yeah.
But of course, in those days, I was much younger. I was much more ambitious because the future was all ahead of me. There was a lot of competition out there.
Mm, yeah.
Everybody had done such great things and were still doing great things. And there were these singer-songwriters around like, Harry Chapin and Cat Stevens and a bunch of others, that were all, you know, out there singing, playing guitars and making records and doing well. But I was in competition really with the Beatles. I was more interested in doing a variety of things like they did.
Mm,
I saw flaws in all the other guys and what they did, and I didn't want to be like that. I saw no flaws in what the Beatles did. It was always inspired, it was always perfect,
yeah.
whatever the song was, and they were always different.
Hmm. Yeah, they definitely changed. Yeah, great stuff.
So that turned me on. I want to
Yeah.
say, I want to be one person, but I'm going to do so many different things that I have in my head because my head was loaded with these ideas, and I would try anything musically.
Mm,
I just didn't care.
yeah.
And sometimes American Pie is an example of that. Just go for it, and it turned out great. But I think most people wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. That's a heck of a first verse, though, to just sort of come out of the air like that. Do you remember what you had for breakfast that morning or anything?
No, I
Yeah.
don't remember anything about it much, except I was in this little room with this rocking chair that I had that I used to sit in, like Linus.
Yeah.
I would write these songs with my tiny little typewriter, and yeah, it came right out into the tape machine. I was singing to the tape machine.
Yeah.
Sometimes a thing would just come out of me, and it still
Hmm.
does.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. And the one thing that I haven't been able to find in any of my research, in the song, you talk about every paper you delivered. What was the name of the paper you were delivering?
The Standard Star.
Okay. Okay.
In those days, they had a newspaper for just about every county in
Mm,
Westchester.
okay.
All of them different. They all had a lot of local news. And
Yeah.
so that was the Standard Star.
Very cool. I also read when it came time to record this with putting the music down, it was that came a little bit harder. You and your producer Ed Freeman kind of butted heads a few times, and I think I read in one interview it wasn't until a piano player named Paul Griffin came in and really kind of nailed
That's all correct.
what you were
That's right.
looking for.
That's right. And Paul Griffin, um, on in his headphones, they cranked up my acoustic guitar, and when they heard can you get me this guitar right here? I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Um, is there? Give me that flat pick right there. Let me just show you what I mean. Now this right here.
Okay.
Um, the song, let's say, a little out of tune. So I'm singing. The song is all this piano stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then it's going into the body of the song. So the guitar goes. See, I'm beating on it,
Yeah.
and the piano just whoa! I got to play, and so I'm laying down the beat like a drum wheel almost.
Yeah.
And so he jumped all over that, and that's what took everybody. Finally, they got it. Um, Before that, um, they were, these sidemen. A lot of times, they can be a little bit too smart ass.
Mm, mm-hmm.
They think they've seen it all. They think they know it all, and they start playing this thing the way they think it should be played rather than listening to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he listened. See, that's what tore everybody around.
Hmm. Very, very cool. The rest of it came fairly easy, or was it the whole thing
No, it
sort of?
wasn't easy. I
Mm,
decided to make a rock and roll song out of it because it's starting out as a ballad again, you
right.
see.
Yeah.
So I came up with this chorus, which was the best thing I did
Mm,
because that's part of what really makes the song. And then I just realized that I was where I was headed with it and wrote five more verses.
very cool. The other thing I found fascinating in reading your story was, of course, when you deliver the paper, you found out about the crash, and at that point, Buddy Holly was kind of your guy. You only had a few records. Two of them were Buddy Holly records. You had an Everly Brothers records. So
Well,
you
nobody had any money in those days, and the record
yeah,
was $3.
right. That took a
So
lot of papers.
let me tell you, it was yes. But let me say this that, and this is crazy because I sound like one of these old guys in a, like in a Gunsmoke. Well, when I was a kid, I worked for $1, but um, it would, you'd get 25 cents to mow a lawn.
Mm,
And I'm talking about a cast iron push lawnmower.
right.
That's what money was worth in the 1950s.
Yeah.
I don't remember even seeing a $10 bill, except one kid who had some money showed me one he had in his wallet. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
We had dollars and coins. That was about all. So,
Yeah.
if you got $3 together, or 250, that was a lot of your money right there. You had to
Mm,
really want that record. So, I think I had the Buddy Holly and the Crickets, the first song, the Buddy Holly. After he died, I got the first Buddy Holly's story, which was heartbreaking,
mm,
absolutely heartbreaking. To read those notes by a guy named Ren Gravett, who I later met, and to see the cover photo of Buddy with those glasses, just his head, and
yeah.
those songs were, oh my God, they were so beautiful.
Hmm.
And there was stuff on there with the other band, with Tommy Alsop and Waylon and all that. And and then I had a couple of Everlys. The fabulous style of the Everly Brothers, where they're on the front, the white cover, where they're in tuxedos. Man, did I love that record! It had till he kissed me on it, and
Yeah.
oh, every night I would listen to that before I went to bed.
That's cool.
All the way through.
The thing I found fascinating was you were trying to find as much info as you could on Buddy Holly, and of course this is pre-internet, pre Rolling Stone magazine.
Oh, you better believe it.
You had to really dig to find
That's
stuff.
what I was doing.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing all the time. I found out, I would find little tidbits out. There was a place called Manny's Music Store in New York.
Mm,
And Manny had a guy there whose name was Henry. And Henry, I forget his last name, but the family owned Manny's Music Store. Manny was Henry's father.
yeah.
And I read somewhere that Manny was the best man at Buddy Holly's wedding in New York.
Huh.
So when I went in there, and they knew me forever, and I went in there
Yeah.
and I saw Henry. I said, "Were you Buddy Holly's best man?" "Oh yes, I was." And okay, tell me a little bit about that. Blah blah blah. So I would find this stuff, and little by little, I began putting the pieces together of a human being and not a record, with
Yeah.
just the notes on the back, because that's
Hmm.
all you could ever find out about anybody.
Right. Right. There definitely wasn't the access that everybody has now.
It,
Um,
it, it wasn't even, there was no access.
yeah.
Okay.
I was going to
None.
say, yeah. Can you imagine back in 1973 sitting down with Jimmy Page and saying, okay, how'd you come up with that opening to Stairway to Heaven?
So let me tell you
Didn't
how
happen.
ignorant I was, and I'm sure that I was interested in the music business, and most of my friends had absolutely no interest in that.
Mm,
They were interested in swimming and baseball and stuff.
yeah.
And I would go to, there was a guy in the House of Music in New Rochelle where I always went, and I would go to the Buddy Holly rack, this is 1959 or whatever.
Yeah.
And there'd be two more records that I'd never seen. And I said, how do they do that? I didn't know anything about tape recording or,
Right.
or any of that. It's crazy. I think back on it now, the mystery of how somebody's dead and all of a sudden new records are appearing.
Yeah.
It was nuts. It was magic though, you see.
Right. Yeah.
It was magic. And there's something wonderful about being blissfully ignorant.
Hmm.
Everything is new and wonderful. So he would explain to me, about how this all worked, and I
Yeah.
said, "Oh, I see. Those were recorded before he passed away, and so on."
Right.
Because we knew all the choral stuff, but this was
Mm.
Decca record, and Decca Choral was a sub-label of Decca, but for
Right.
some reason, and Brunswick was another one. When he was on the smaller labels, that's when he kicked ass.
Yeah.
When he was on the big label, it was lousy. He did the same songs.
Mm.
So it's a kind of
Interesting.
funny thing, it depends on who's producing.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. My next question I got from my 15-year-old daughter Lydia. We were talking the other night as I was bringing her home from gymnastics. She said,
I see.
How did you get a interview with this American Pie guy?" I said, "Well, I got an email and said if you want to set up an interview, do it."
Yeah.
I said, "What would you ask him if you could ask him?" She said, "I'd ask him about the album cover. I think it's kind of interesting. We can kind of see his face, and then that thumb is right in the front with the red, white, and blue. So how did that come about?"
Okay, well, if you notice carefully, my fist is resting on the top of my guitar.
Okay.
So if you see it, you'll see the bridge of my guitar. The lower bout of the guitar is facing you, and
Mm,
the fist is on it, and I'm looking down it. And you see the wooden part of my, but that's what that is. And that was Media Arts Records. I was still with Media Arts when I'd written the song and had that to go, and then they went out of business. And then United Artists bought them, but they had this guy named Whiteman. I can't think of his first name now. But he was a fashion photographer,
ah,
and he had a big Rolls, a silver cloud, parked out in front of his place in L.A. And
mm,
all these hot chicks would come in and give him big hugs, and stuff. And oh man, it was just like this guy's living the life. And
yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard of the photographer Andre Didane, but he would photograph these incredible nudes in the sand,
Mm,
and they all worked with Marilyn, of course. And
sure.
so he was one of those cats, and
Mm,
he said, "Come on in, I'm going to paint your thumb." So that's how it started. He painted my thumb, put a star on it,
yeah.
and we took 100 pictures, and I can't find any of them.
Wow, that's
It's a
cool.
drag.
Very cool. So let's circle around to now. You got the single that came out last week, the video coming out tomorrow with Home Free. How did this collaboration come about?
Um, my management was working with them on another project and suggested that they do American Pie, that we were, going to go and do a lot of publicity for this 50th anniversary. And that not only that, but record companies were going to be involved. That it wasn't just a something we were going to do, but it was
Mm,
something that it was going to be almost institutional,
yeah,
and that they should get behind this. So they loved the idea and did a great job.
yeah, yeah. Great job. Definitely. The other thing I've been sort of thinking about was, when you wrote this song, America was sort of in a tumultuous time. Vietnam War winding down, you had the
Mm-hmm.
60s stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are turning around 50 years later, and we're sort of in a tumultuous time. You getting a little sense of deja vu with any of this, or?
Not at all, because I think now is much worse
Mm,
because we're worried about our health,
yeah.
and this thing is affecting any of these bad times, or let's say changing times, whether it was the Depression or the 60s or whatever. We were a healthy nation. Had a good environment. We had most of the animals on the planet. The ocean was still healthy. We have a sick planet now,
Yeah.
with a thing out there that's not only making people sick and killing them, and some it's not doing anything to, which is the odd part, but
Yeah.
it's psychologically affecting the way we relate to one another. So I think it's much more profound, and I think that therefore music especially the music that we knew before, is extremely important
Mm,
to getting people through this and having them hold on to their sanity.
yeah, yeah.
I believe that.
Definitely, definitely. I think that's why a lot of these songs are coming back. Vinyl records are coming back. It seems like everybody wants that bit of the past that brought them comfort.
That vinyl lasts a long time, man.
It
And
does.
and you do download or something, and you lose your phone or whatever, everything gets lost. It's all very easily lost. But you ain't gonna lose a record unless you put it in the sun, on the deck behind your car where the back seat window is. You're gonna ruin it. But if you handle it right, I've got albums going back forever, till I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I've got all my albums.
Do you still have those Holly and Everly Brothers records that
Oh,
we were
I got
talking about?
every. Oh, yes, I have
Mm,
everything.
that's cool. Very,
And I
very
would
cool.
go around the world and I would collect. This is back when they did vinyl was really what was happening.
Mm,
I have like Beatles pressings, from EMI from the UK, and I've got a whole set of all the Capitol records that Sinatra put out, which I got from Capitol in Holland. These are never been played. Oh man, this is the real deal because that's the last word of the artist and the producer is that vinyl recording released at that moment. Everything that's happened since with that track, it's probably been screwed around with somebody,
yeah.
remastered, changed in some fashion.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. You've got the real deal, the absolute real deal. That's awesome. That is awesome. So now going forward, I mean, we're all sort of in a state of pause right now, hold,
Yes.
you know.
Hmm.
Um, what do you have anything lined up? You just waiting? Got to be frustrating.
No, I'm not frustrated at all. I'm delighted. I'm loving being able to do anything and not have to catch planes at 2 in the morning. And
Okay. Yep.
I did this forever for 50 years.
Yeah.
I was always on the road, man. I'm a free radical,
Mm,
rambling around in the body politic, And now I'm home and I've been getting some rest and I've been creating some new businesses and the website, the YouTube channel, and loading a lot of different material up there. Uploaded 11 albums and 173 tracks.
wow.
Um, I've got a new album in the can. I've got the Still Playing Favorites that just came out. I'm always working on projects, so I'm getting ahead of a lot of stuff and getting things going. A documentary, which is we've got the money for, and we've got a deal for that, and a bunch of other things. That once things start going again, I won't have time to do this stuff, and now it's going to go on its own.
True. Yeah. So you're definitely making the best of the
Yeah,
stay-at-home order. Yeah,
I
that's
am.
very
I'm
cool.
loving it.
Yeah. I can see for somebody who'd been on the road for so long, yeah, it's gotta
Yeah,
be
I'm loving
totally,
it,
totally
man. I
cool.
really am.
Very cool. One quick tidbit I've got to ask about, just to see. I mean, I read this on the internet, so I'm thinking it's got to be true, but I want to just sort of verify it. You went to Villanova briefly back in '63. Met Jim Croce while you were there.
Well, Jim Croce, yes, is the answer.
Mm,
But I didn't want to go to college. My mother insisted that I go,
yeah.
and she got me into Villanova because I was a terrible student, and
Mm,
she knew some important priest somewhere who pulled some strings, and I got in. And I had a bunch of friends that were going there anyway, and I brought my banjo and my guitar, and most of the time I was practicing, and I was living off campus with a widowed lady and her family, and
mm,
driving them crazy, playing the guitar and the banjo all the time. Then, anyway, the word got around to Jim, who was an upperclassman. Jim Croce was, in those days, a blazer wearing big man on campus, somebody
oh,
like who would sing in the Brothers Four
yeah.
or something like that. And he was a psychology major,
Mm,
very smart. He was going to go and get his master's, and he was going to work with children. He was a very compassionate type of a guy,
yeah.
and he discovered me.
Huh.
And so he said, wow, I play too. You want to meet and we'll get together. And So we had a number of times when we sat around, and Jim had a lot of funny songs that he knew, a lot of crazy songs. He's got away with woman, he just got away with mine, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so then he would bring me, say, let's get together. I know a guy who lives in a trailer or plays mandolin and banjo. Let's go over there. So we would do that. Philadelphia, they're loaded with great stuff. They had I think it was MMR or one of those stations. They
Mm,
played my music like crazy.
yeah.
And the Philadelphia Folk Festival, of course, and the Main Point, which is a club that I used to work in the 1960s. It kept me, food on the table, going
Mm.
there. It was a magic place, Philadelphia. Of course, the whole Philadelphia sound, Jocko's Rocket Ship Show, all that stuff.
Yeah, I was just all that Philly soul stuff. Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah,
What is it about that? Who knows? I don't know.
yeah.
But it was the Italians all came out of there, Fabian and the wonderful Bobby Rydell. It was crazy, man. It was Philly sound. It was magic.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Chatting with Don McLean here for Let's Discuss with Lance Hall. Once again, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the release of American Pie. Check out the video for the collaboration he did with Home Free that's coming out tomorrow on YouTube. Really cool. A little bit more up tempo, I noticed throughout. It doesn't really just sort of cranks right up there.
You mean their version of the
Yeah,
tune?
yeah,
Yeah, well, they got five guys that have an arrangement and they know harmony, so they're driving that thing pretty good.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was beating on the back of the guitar, also giving a little thump, like Elvis used to do, and Don't Be Cruel.
Right.
And you don't hear it, but you feel it a little bit. And so it turned out I'm really happy that people are liking it.
Excellent, excellent stuff. It's gonna open it right up again. Just like sort of like when Madonna covered it. I thought that was brilliant. Her
Well,
version.
Madonna is like, she's the closest thing to Elvis Presley we have left when you think
Yeah.
about it.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
She gets no respect either.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Right. I
Man,
agree. I agree 100%. The woman's done it all. Her by herself, done it all herself.
done it all, and nobody stops her, and she doesn't give a rat's ass what anybody says. She's just
Yeah.
moving on. I love her. I think she's
Very
great.
cool. All right, Don. We got to just about wound down. You said you've done a lot of interviews today. I want to try and ask you my fun questions. I'm hoping these are questions you've never been asked before. Just go first thing that pops into your head. Sound good?
Yes. Can you answer that and tell the guy I'll call him in 5 minutes? Okay. I got a phone interview but I'll answer your questions now.
All right, I'll just ask you a couple. First car you bought.
Sure.
First
No,
car you bought with your own money.
First car I bought with my own money was a Carmen Ghia,
Okay.
a white 1966 Carmen Ghia.
Very cool. Given your choice of household chores, would you rather do dishes or the laundry?
Laundry any day.
All right. Other than your own, what's the last piece of music you listened to?
Recently,
Yeah.
the last piece of music I listened to was Frank Sinatra singing It Had to Be You from the Trilogy album. And I was listening because I was amazed that he's only 62 years old and his voice is really dry, and it's kind of, he sings great, because he always has so much emotion. But as a singer, I was analyzing it and listening to, wow, he really alcoholed up that voice till it was just about ready to crumble. You should
Yeah.
listen to it sometime. He can't really hold the vibrato when he holds the notes, but of course there's so much emotion in the song.
Yeah. Very cool. If you could go back in time and have your mom fix you one of your favorite meals from your childhood, what would you have her prepare?
Meatloaf.
All right. Last
She's a
one.
good maker of meatloaf.
Okay. Last one. And this is the one we have the most fun with. If they were to make a movie of your life, what actor would you have portray you in the movie? It's your movie, your
Christian
life.
Bale.
Very good. Cool. Great answer. Don, I thank you very, very much for the time, for the conversation. Fascinating stuff. I hope you had a good time as well.
I did have a good time, and you keep having a good time. That's what life's all about. Stay away from the neurotics and have a great time.
Absolutely. I appreciate the extra time as well. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Don. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.